All right, everybody. This one's going to be about like futures markets and explaining how if you watch them, it just shows and is indicative of the fact that our whole economy is a fucking joke. Um, so futures markets, in a nutshell, they're only relevant and they only work in as so they're speculative in nature. 100%. That's what they are. You're speculating on the future price of a commodity, right? Or a company or some kind of asset. Um, when these things were originally created as tradable, assets on exchanges, they were mainly for like agricultural products. So like corn, now it's soybean today, and textiles, cotton, these kind of things. It was measured to implement some kind of stability in these agricultural markets, and give farmers um, and seed companies and all these kind of co-ops, all these associated businesses and industries like a buffer, if they were to have a bad year, because we're talking, the 20s, 30s, 40s, and before. Okay. Now what we have is we have index funds, Dow, S&P, Nasdaq, all this shit, and then we have futures contracts on those index funds. Okay. What this does is it creates a feedback loop. So think about it like this: if you have enough money, if you are a hedge fund, let's say, and you take out a future, 1,000 futures contracts of S&P, okay, you have an incentive to also trade real stock of S&P at the same time to manipulate the price. If you're doing heavy volume, to manipulate the price to make sure that your shorts, or I'm sorry, your futures contracts meet the price on execution date. Because the other asset or facet of futures is that they're leveraged. So it's not like a traditional stock where you just you get 10%. It's like you're talking 10x, 100x. It's leverage trading. Extremely risky, but extremely rewarding if your bets pay off. So that's what these companies are doing with index funds and all sorts of other stocks that are also traded as futures contracts. They buy futures, they buy the stock or short the stock, manipulate its price to make sure that their futures and their leveraged trades that are more profitable hit their mark like in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. But these futures contracts only exist and can only exist in a completely speculative, non-tangible kind of economy where the instrument of trade, the dollar in our case, is not tied to anything tangible. That's the only ecosystem in which speculation like this at this level can exist. Like speculation is not inherently bad, but when you make a feedback loop of manipulating real stock to make money in this speculative market, that means that your market is completely manufactured. And it's not free and it's not a real market. And that every number that you see associated with any kind of price is basically just fucking monopoly money. It's all a bunch of made up bullshit. Um, and people feel this, but they might not understand it on like the mathematical level or the systems level, like how a system works. They might not understand things as deeply as I'm describing them, but they have this gut feeling and they understand that something's wrong. That this is what's wrong. That's what these people that are in hedge funds and in government and all these lobbying groups and all this shit understand that you don't. about the markets. That's why your life sucks, and you see all these people making money, and you don't understand why. Because the game is fucking rigged, folks. You're never going to be those people unless you're willing to kill people and do terrible shit. It simply doesn't matter what you do. So yeah, that's why futures are dumb. Largely, they become this monolithic hydra um, that largely needs to be eradicated from our market. And I mean, we got a fundamental core issue that's larger than that. But in a restructuring of our financial system, the whole idea of how futures are traded would need to be gutted 90% because it just invites collusion and uh, insider trading and all sorts of illegal financial shit. That's not cool and fucks everyone over.